I always thought I lived modestly. I was never extravagant, never reckless with money. But one day I sat down and took a closer look at where my money was going. And what I found truly surprised me. I was spending more than I realized, not on big things, but on small habits that had quietly added up over time. As seniors, we often believe that because we are not living lavishly, we must be spending wisely. But the truth is, many of us carry old habits, overlook recurring expenses, and underestimate the power of emotional spending. This is not about blame. It is about awareness, because without it, our savings slowly disappear, one unnoticed charge at a time. 1. Holding on to old spending habits from working life. When I retired, I told myself I was ready. I had planned, saved, and made peace with the idea of living on less. I no longer had a paycheck coming in every 2 weeks, and I thought I would naturally adjust. But what I did not realize is that my spending habits, those deeply ingrained routines from my working years, did not retire with me. Back when I was still working, I got used to certain conveniences: morning coffee from the shop on the corner, lunch out with coworkers, a stop at the store on the way home to pick up something just because. It was all justified in my mind. I worked hard, I earned that comfort, and the money was there to support it. But after retirement, something strange happened. I kept spending the same way even though the income had changed. The habits stayed. I still went out for lunch. I still bought things I did not truly need. I still reached for my wallet with the same ease, forgetting that every dollar spent was now a dollar not replaced by a paycheck. At first, I told myself it was harmless, just a few dollars here and there. But as the months went on, I began to notice something. My savings were shrinking, not because of emergencies or big purchases, but because I was living as if I were still working. I hadn't made the mental shift. I had not realigned my lifestyle with my new reality. This realization was not easy to accept. It made me feel a little foolish, but I also saw it as a moment of clarity. I started tracking what I spent, even the little things. I began making my own coffee in the mornings. I prepared simple meals at home instead of eating out. I gave myself permission to slow down, not just in life, but in spending. The truth is, retirement requires more than financial planning. It requires habit change. If we do not let go of our working life spending patterns, they will quietly sabotage the very freedom we worked so hard to earn. 2. Underestimating the cost of small daily indulgences. It is easy to ignore the small things: a magazine at the grocery store checkout, a $2 mobile game, a cup of coffee from the cafe around the corner. None of them feel like big decisions. They are small comforts, tiny pleasures, little rewards. But what I learned, sometimes the hard way, is that it is not the big expenses that drain a retirement budget. It is the small ones, repeated often without notice. For years, I never paid attention to these kinds of purchases. I believed I was frugal. I never bought luxury items or went on expensive vacations. But I still wondered why my savings did not stretch as far as I had hoped. One afternoon, I decided to add up everything I had spent in the past 30 days. Not the bills or groceries, but the little extras. What I saw surprised me. It was over $200, and that was a light month. That money did not go to emergencies or home repairs. It went to things I barely remembered buying. I realized I had been spending without intention. These were not conscious decisions. They were just habits. A few dollars a day, multiplied by weeks and months, becomes thousands of dollars a year. That was money I could have used for something meaningful, or simply saved to feel more secure. There is nothing wrong with small pleasures. Retirement should not feel like deprivation, but what I needed was awareness. So I started doing something simple. Before each small purchase, I paused and asked myself, do I really want this? Or is this just a habit? That one question made a world of difference. Sometimes I still buy the coffee. Sometimes I skip it and enjoy the quiet of making it at home. The difference now is that I choose, instead of drifting through the day with my wallet half open. The freedom of retirement is not just about time. It is about spending with intention, even on the smallest things. 3. The I deserve it mindset. One of the most seductive thoughts that crept into my mind after retirement was this one: I deserve it. After all those years of hard work, raising a family, paying off a mortgage, showing up every day, I felt like I had earned the right to enjoy myself, and I had. But I did not realize how quickly that belief could turn into overspending. It started innocently: a new recliner for the living room, a nicer set of kitchen knives, a weekend getaway that turned into a 5-day trip. Each decision made sense in the moment. I told myself, why not? I am retired now. This is my time. And in many ways, that was true. But I did not stop to think about how often I was saying it, or how much it was costing me. I was not living extravagantly, at least not by appearance. But I was living beyond what my retirement budget could truly handle, and I was justifying it with a feeling: I deserve it. The truth is, that phrase can be dangerous if it is not balanced with reflection. Because every time I told myself I deserved something, I was choosing instant satisfaction over long-term security. Eventually, I began to feel the pressure. The savings were not where they should have been. The credit card balance looked heavier than usual. I felt more anxious, not less. That was when I had to take a step back and ask, what do I really deserve? I realized I deserved peace of mind. I deserved stability. I deserved to wake up without worrying about money, and that meant shifting how I defined reward. Instead of new things, I began to see value in quiet mornings, in good health, in the ability to live freely and simply. You absolutely deserve to enjoy retirement, but joy is not always found in spending. Sometimes it is found in appreciating what you already have. And once I understood that, I started spending less and feeling richer than ever before. 4. Emotional spending tied to nostalgia and memory. No one tells you how powerful memory can be when it comes to money. For me, it happened slowly. I would see something in a store that reminded me of my childhood, or a piece of furniture that looked like the one my parents had, a certain scent, a song, a cookbook, an old movie on sale. These things tugged at something deep in me. They brought comfort, familiarity, a connection to a time or a person I missed. So I bought them. At first, it felt harmless, a few dollars here and there to recapture a feeling. But over time, I noticed something strange. My home was filling up with items that held sentimental value, but little use. I was not collecting things. I was collecting emotions, trying to hold on to moments that had already passed. And it was costing me more than money. It added clutter to my home and weight to my heart. Because no item, no matter how familiar, could truly bring back what I was longing for. I had been spending in an attempt to reconnect with the past rather than being present in the life I had now. It took time to understand this pattern. I still believe there is value in honoring memory, but I had to find new ways to do it. I began writing letters to loved ones. I started sharing stories with my grandchildren. I framed a few special photos instead of buying more keepsakes. In doing so, I felt closer to my past without letting it control my spending. Emotional spending is subtle. It feels warm, not reckless, but it can quietly pull you away from financial balance. Now, when I feel that wave of nostalgia, I pause. I ask myself, do I want this item, or do I miss something deeper? That question changed everything. 5. Overspending on home maintenance out of pride. There was a time when my home felt like a symbol of everything I had worked for. It was more than just a building. It held memories, milestones, and meaning. I raised my children there. I celebrated birthdays, holidays, and quiet moments that no one else ever saw. So when retirement came and the kids had long since moved away, I held on to that house with everything I had. But holding on came at a cost. It started with small repairs, a leaky faucet, a broken light fixture. Then it was the roof, the heating system, the water heater. The yard needed care, the gutters needed cleaning, and the taxes kept climbing. Every year something else came up, and because I was proud of that house, I kept fixing it. I kept pouring money into it, telling myself it was worth it, and maybe it was. But what I did not realize at the time was that my pride in maintaining the house was quietly draining my savings. I was not spending because I wanted to show off. I was spending because I felt like letting the house go would mean letting go of my past. It would feel like giving up. Eventually, though, I had to ask myself some hard questions. Was the space still serving me? Or was I serving it? Was I living in the home? Or was the home running my life? The answers were difficult, but honest. I began to consider other options, not because I wanted to downsize, but because I wanted to simplify. A smaller place meant lower taxes, lower maintenance, and less stress. It meant more freedom to focus on what mattered now, not what used to matter years ago. Letting go of the house was not easy, but it gave me breathing room. Financially, emotionally, and physically. I realized that a home is not defined by square footage or property value. It is defined by peace. And when I finally stepped into a smaller, simpler place, I felt more at home than I had in years. 6. Forgetting irregular and seasonal expenses. I used to think I had a pretty good handle on my spending. My monthly bills were paid, my groceries were budgeted, and I was not buying anything extravagant. But every so often, something would throw me off. A big car repair, a holiday gift spree, or a medical bill I had not expected. I would feel blindsided, like it came out of nowhere. The truth is, it did not come out of nowhere. I just was not planning for it. Retirement comes with a different rhythm. There are months that feel light and easy, and others that hit hard, not because of poor decisions, but because of forgotten realities. Things like annual insurance premiums, property taxes, birthdays, travel for family events, even winter heating bills. They do not show up every month, so they slip through the cracks. I used to get frustrated. I thought, I am careful. I do not overspend. So why does it still feel tight some months? Then I realized the problem was not how much I was spending overall. It was how unevenly it was happening. I had not accounted for timing, so I started doing something simple but powerful. I took out a piece of paper and made a list of every expense I could think of that only happened once or twice a year. Then I divided those costs across 12 months and treated them like monthly bills. I created a small reserve fund just for those irregular moments. It did not take a financial degree, just a shift in thinking. Since then, I have not been surprised by a single annual expense. When the holiday season comes, I already have the money. When the car needs new tires, I am ready. That preparation has given me confidence and peace. I do not feel like I am always catching up. I feel like I am one step ahead. It is not the amount that overwhelms us. It is the unexpected. And in retirement, the fewer surprises we allow, the more secure we feel. 7. Helping others financially beyond our means. We love our families, that much is certain. And as parents, grandparents, siblings, or friends, we often want to be generous, especially in retirement. After all, we finally have time and we want to support the people we love. But sometimes that love turns into quiet financial strain because we say yes when we cannot truly afford to. I remember the first time I helped one of my children with a loan. It felt good to say yes. I wanted to show I still had value, that I could still provide. Then came another request, a little help with rent, a contribution to college books, a few $100s here and there. It was never huge, but it was often, and I never said no. At first, I did not notice the impact, but over time, it added up. My emergency fund got smaller. My credit card balance grew. And most of all, I began to feel anxious. Not because I did not love them, but because I had not protected myself in the process. It took courage to have a conversation with my family. Not one filled with blame, but one filled with honesty. I explained my situation. I shared what I could do and what I could not, and to my surprise, they understood. In fact, they respected me more for setting those boundaries. Helping others is a beautiful part of life, but in retirement, we have to remember that our resources are limited. We cannot pour from an empty cup, and we do no one a favor by quietly sacrificing our own well-being out of guilt or pride. Now I give differently. I offer time, attention, and presence. I help within my means, and most importantly, I take care of myself first, so I can keep showing up for those I love without fear or resentment. 8. Fear of missing out on life experiences. There is a quiet pressure that sneaks in during retirement. We do not talk about it much, but we feel it. It is the feeling that time is short, and if we do not enjoy life now, we might never get the chance again. That urgency can lead to a kind of spending we never expected. It happened to me after a few friends went on a cruise. They came back glowing, telling stories of sunrises at sea and endless buffets. I smiled and listened, but inside I felt something stir. I began thinking, maybe I should go too. Maybe I am missing out. Before long, I was looking at brochures, justifying the cost, and telling myself I deserved it. That trip was wonderful, but so was the bill that followed. I realized afterward that my decision had been driven more by comparison than by true desire. I had let fear make the choice, not joy. And in doing so, I had disrupted my financial plan for the next several months. It is easy to feel like everyone else is living better, doing more, enjoying life while we sit still. But the truth is, no one shows the stress behind the scenes, and no one can define what joy looks like for you. I started asking myself one question whenever I felt the pull to spend. Is this experience truly meaningful to me, or am I trying to keep up? That question saved me more than once. Now I find joy in smaller things. A quiet picnic, a phone call with an old friend, a walk at sunset. And I do travel, but only when it fits, not because I feel left out. In retirement, peace does not come from doing everything. It comes from choosing the few things that matter most and letting the rest go without guilt. 9. Not reassessing recurring bills and subscriptions. I used to think that once I set up my bills, that was it. Phone, internet, television, insurance, all on autopay, all running in the background. It felt convenient, even responsible. But over time, those quiet monthly charges became a silent leak in my budget. Not because they were wrong, but because I stopped checking them. Month after month, I paid for services I no longer used. I had a premium cable package, but mostly watched basic channels. I had 2 streaming services that I had not logged into for months. My phone plan was built for more data than I ever needed. And my insurance? I had not compared rates in years. Everything was just set. Until I finally sat down and looked line by line. It was a wake-up call. There were subscriptions I had completely forgotten about. Small charges, $8 or $10 a month, that did not seem worth canceling until I realized how many there were. Collectively, they were costing me hundreds each year. Not for what I valued, but for what I ignored. So I made a list. Every recurring charge, every auto payment. I asked myself, do I really use this? Does it still serve me? If the answer was no, I canceled it. If it was maybe, I paused it and waited to see if I missed it. Most of the time, I did not. I also called my service providers. I asked if there were senior discounts, loyalty options, or more affordable plans. It took a few hours and some patience, but it was worth it. I saved money, yes, but more importantly, I felt in control again. Recurring bills are easy to forget. That is what makes them dangerous. They are quiet, consistent, and often invisible. But when you take the time to look, even once or twice a year, you might find that you are paying for things that no longer fit your life, and letting them go can feel like a breath of fresh air. 10. Lacking the energy or confidence to manage finances actively. There was a season in my retirement when I felt tired, not just physically, but mentally. The idea of sitting down to go through bills, budgets, or statements felt overwhelming. I told myself, I will do it next week, but next week kept moving further away. I knew I should check on my spending, review my accounts, and make adjustments. But some days, I simply did not have the energy. And other days, I felt unsure. What if I made a mistake? What if I did not understand something? No one talks much about this part of aging, the part where confidence starts to shrink even when wisdom is still strong. I was not confused. I was just worn out. And slowly, because I stopped paying close attention, little things began to slip. A subscription renewed without me noticing. A bill was paid twice. A late fee showed up because I forgot a due date. Nothing dramatic, but it added stress. And in retirement, stress feels heavier than it used to. Eventually, I realized I needed to do something, not alone, but with support. I reached out to someone I trusted. For me, it was my daughter. I did not hand over full control, but I let her help me create a clearer picture. We sat together once a month to review things. She showed me how to use a simple app to track my spending. She helped me organize my paperwork and set up reminders. It was not about giving up independence. It was about building new systems that respected where I was in life. I also gave myself permission to work at my own pace. I did not need to be perfect. I just needed to be present. Little by little, the fear faded, the confusion cleared, and the confidence returned. Not all at once, but enough to feel steady again. Managing money in retirement does not have to be complicated, but it does have to be intentional. And if you ever feel too tired or unsure to do it alone, asking for help is not weakness. It is wisdom. Awareness is the first step to freedom. We do not overspend because we are irresponsible. We do it because life is full of routines, emotions, and small decisions that quietly add up. In retirement, it is easy to believe we are spending modestly, especially when we are not chasing luxury. But the truth is, overspending often hides in the ordinary. It is in habits we carried over from our working years. It is in the small indulgences we never track. It is in the quiet subscriptions, the forgotten fees, the emotional purchases we make when we miss someone or something. But here is the good news. Once we become aware, we have the power to change. You do not need to overhaul your life. You do not need to feel guilty. All it takes is one step, attention, looking closely, gently at where your money is going, asking yourself if it still reflects who you are and what you truly value now. When I started paying attention, not just to dollars, but to purpose, everything shifted. I began spending less without feeling deprived. I felt more peace, more control, and more joy in the things I chose to keep. If you are watching this and wondering whether any of this applies to you, I want to say this. You are not alone, and you are not too late. Retirement is not about holding on to old habits. It is about discovering new freedom, quiet freedom, the kind that lasts. Thank you for being here with me. If this spoke to you, I hope you will share it with someone you care about, because sometimes the most powerful change starts with the smallest realization.